Clarity comes from action, not endless thinking. Many people sit and wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect level of confidence before they begin. They want to see the entire road before taking the first step, but life rarely works that way. The path becomes visible only after you start walking. Action is what clears the fog. When you move, you gain experience. When you experience, you gain clarity. Thinking has value, but thinking alone keeps you trapped inside your head. Action opens the door between imagination and reality. You do not need to know every step of the journey. You only need to know the next one. Just like headlights on a dark road do not show the entire highway, but only a few meters ahead, yet those few meters are enough to complete the entire journey. In the same way, your first step does not have to be perfect, it just has to be real. Overthinking wants guarantees. Action only requires courage. And clarity is the reward for those who dare to begin without having everything figured out. Most people believe certainty leads to action. The truth is the opposite. Action creates certainty. When you sit and think, your mind creates doubts, fears, and imaginary problems. You ask, what if I fail? What will people say? What if I'm wrong? But when you act, reality replaces imagination. You get feedback. You see what works and what doesn't. You make adjustments. You grow wiser and stronger through experience, not through endless analysis. You don't learn to swim by reading about water. You learn by getting in. Every great success story begins with movement, not perfect planning. Entrepreneurs, athletes, creators, leaders, none of them had complete clarity at the beginning. They took a step, learned from it, corrected their direction, and took another step. Progress is not the result of perfect knowledge, it is the result of repeated action. Thinking can prepare you, but only action transforms you. Action also destroys fear. Fear grows in stillness and silence. The longer you wait, the louder your doubts become. When you act, your mind shifts from what might happen to what is happening. This shift is powerful. Action puts your focus on solutions instead of worries. Even small actions count. Write one paragraph, make one call, start one habit. Tiny movements break the chains of overthinking. Clarity is not a gift you receive before starting. It is something you earn along the way. You discover what you truly want while doing, not while endlessly planning. You discover your strengths while trying, not while imagining. Thinking has its place, but thinking without action becomes hesitation, and hesitation slowly becomes regret. So take the first step with whatever you have, from wherever you are. Trust that the road will reveal itself as you move forward. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to begin. Clarity will follow your footsteps. Overthinking grows best in unlimited time, which is why giving your mind clear limits is so powerful. When you say, "I'll decide later," or "someday," your brain doesn't rest. It starts creating stories. It imagines every worst-case scenario, every possible mistake, every judgment from other people. With no deadline, the mind keeps looping, analyzing, doubting, and replaying the same thoughts again and again. The decision doesn't get better, only your anxiety gets stronger. That is why one of the most effective ways to beat overthinking is to give your mind a timer. Decide on purpose within a window you choose. A deadline forces clarity. When you tell yourself, "I have 10 minutes to think, then I choose," your brain shifts from wandering to focusing. You move from emotional reaction to practical evaluation. You ask better questions. Instead of, "What if everything goes wrong?" you begin to ask, "What is the best next step right now?" Your mind works better with boundaries than with infinite possibilities. Unlimited time feels safe, but it silently feeds hesitation. Limited time creates pressure, and that pressure pushes you towards action. Strong people are not people who always know the perfect answer. They are people who are willing to decide and then adjust. Decisions shape your life far more than hesitation ever will. Every time you postpone a decision, you train your brain to avoid responsibility. Every time you decide, even imperfectly, you train your brain to trust itself. That trust becomes confidence. You begin to realize that you don't need every answer in advance because you are capable of handling whatever comes next. Deadlines also reduce fear because fear feeds on uncertainty. Think about moments when you had no choice but to act: an exam starting, a train leaving, a job interview beginning. You didn't have time to overthink, you simply responded. Action took over. That same principle can be applied voluntarily to your life. Give yourself 1 hour to choose between two paths. Give yourself 1 day to start the project, 10 minutes to send the message, 1 week to begin the habit. Once the time is up, you move. No debate, no delay. Decision deadlines does not mean you will never make mistakes. It means you accept that mistakes are part of movement. You trade perfection for progress. You choose growth instead of paralysis. You understand that you can refine your decision after making it, but you cannot refine a decision that never happens. Life rewards movement. Doors open for people who knock, not for people who sit in front of them thinking about whether they should. In the end, indecision is still a decision to stay stuck. Giving your mind limits is an act of self-leadership. It says, I am in charge here, not my fears, not my doubts, not my endless what-ifs. Set the deadline, make the choice, take the step. You can improve direction while moving, but you cannot go anywhere while standing still. Perfection is one of the most beautiful-sounding prisons in the world. It disguises itself as high standards, as I just want to do it right, but in reality, it often means I'm afraid to start unless I can guarantee I won't fail. Perfection keeps you frozen while life keeps moving. You wait for the perfect timing, the perfect plan, the perfect skill level, and in that waiting, opportunities quietly pass by. Progress, on the other hand, is alive. It is movement, even if the steps are small and imperfect. Progress says, I'll begin now and get better along the way. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a working plan. Something you can act on today, not someday. Every great success began as something unfinished, unpolished, and uncertain. The first product version is rough. The first speech is shaky. The first video is awkward. The first business idea is confusing. But none of those first attempts needed to be perfect. They needed to exist. You cannot refine what you never begin. Imperfect action can be shaped, improved, and strengthened. Perfect ideas kept inside your head help no one, not even you. Perfection creates impossible standards. It tells you that if you can't do it flawlessly, it's better not to try at all. It convinces you to rewrite instead of publish, to plan instead of execute, to dream instead of do. Progress is far more honest. It accepts mistakes as part of the journey. It says, yes, you'll stumble. Yes, you'll learn. Yes, it might be messy, but you'll move forward. That movement is where confidence is built. You don't become confident by imagining perfection. You become confident by surviving imperfection. Progress also teaches faster than perfection ever could. When you act, you get real feedback. You see what works and what doesn't. You adjust. You grow. You gain practical wisdom that thinking alone can never provide. Perfection tries to predict the future. Progress works with reality. Every step you take gives you information you could never have gained from the sidelines. The world rewards finishers, not perfect thinkers. Nobody claps for the person who almost created something wonderful but never launched it. Results come from completed actions, not flawless intentions. People who change their lives are not the ones who wait for fear to disappear. They are the ones who move forward while fear is still talking. They understand that starting small, scared, and imperfect is still infinitely better than not starting at all. Replacing perfection with progress is an act of courage. It means allowing yourself to be a beginner. It means accepting that your first attempts may be rough. It means understanding that growth is messy by nature. But it also means freedom.
You free yourself from the pressure to perform perfectly and give yourself permission to learn, to improve, and to evolve. You stop asking, "Is this perfect?" and start asking, "Is this better than yesterday?" Your life does not need perfection to change. It needs movement. Take the imperfect step. Launch the unfinished idea. Speak before your voice stops shaking. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You need to begin to ever become great. Overthinking is fueled by living in the world of what if, where imaginary scenarios multiply and fear takes control. The mind starts creating movies about everything that could go wrong, and slowly, action freezes. But power does not exist in the future or the past. It exists only in the present moment. Focusing on what you can control right now is the key to breaking the loop of worry and indecision. You can't change yesterday, no matter how hard you think about it, and you can't fully control tomorrow, no matter how much you plan. Life is happening now, and progress is always created by action in the present, not by imagining the future. When your mind runs toward things you cannot control, you drain your energy. You think about what people will say, how they might react, or whether the result will be perfect. None of that is in your hands. What is in your control is your effort, your attitude, your consistency, and the actions you choose to take today. When you shift your attention to these controllable factors, you instantly feel lighter and more powerful. You realize that while you may not control every outcome, you always control how you show up. That simple shift turns confusion into clarity and fear into movement. Focusing on the next step instead of the entire journey is one of the strongest ways to regain control. When you think about the whole mountain, you feel overwhelmed. But when you focus on only the next small step, the mountain becomes climbable. Ask yourself, what can I do right now with what I have? That question pulls you back into reality. It stops the spiral of what if I fail and replaces it with what can I try? Action, even small action, breaks the mental noise that overthinking creates. Another important truth is that outcomes are never fully yours to control, but effort always is. You can study hard, but results depend on many factors. You can love someone deeply, but their behavior is not in your control. You can build a business, but the market may change. If you attach your peace only to outcomes, you will constantly feel anxious. When you attach your peace to effort and discipline, you become unshakable. You learn to say, "I will give my best," and let life respond how it wants. That mindset builds inner strength and reduces stress. The present moment is not just a place, it is a point of power. Right now is where habits are built, where confidence is earned, and where dreams move from imagination into reality. Every time you choose action over worry, you weaken the habit of overthinking and strengthen the habit of execution. You start trusting yourself more because you see yourself doing instead of doubting. Over time, this becomes momentum, and momentum is stronger than motivation. So bring your attention back from the past and future and anchor it in now. Control what you can, your choices, your effort, your discipline, your next action. Let go of what you can't, other people's opinions, past mistakes, unpredictable outcomes. Life changes not when you think differently, but when you act differently in the present moment. The mind has a habit of making everything look bigger and scarier the longer you stare at it. A simple task starts to feel heavy, a dream begins to feel impossible, and fear slowly grows in the empty space between intention and action. That's why taking small actions immediately is so powerful. The moment you move, even in a tiny way, the spell of fear breaks. You stop imagining and start experiencing. The problem shifts from being an intimidating thought to a manageable activity your body is actually doing. Action shrinks fear because reality is almost always less frightening than the stories the mind creates. Big goals often paralyze people not because they're impossible, but because they're viewed as one giant leap instead of many small steps. When you tell yourself you need to change your whole life at once, your brain resists. It wants safety, familiarity, and comfort. But when you break your goal into something small and doable right now, the brain relaxes. One message, one page, one push-up, one honest conversation. These tiny moves matter more than grand plans because they start momentum, and momentum is everything. Once you begin, continuing becomes easier than starting again later. Action has another hidden benefit. It gives you evidence. When you do something, no matter how small, you prove to yourself that you are capable. Your self-talk changes from I should to I did. Confidence is not built from thinking positively. It is built by seeing yourself follow through. Every small action says to your mind, I can trust myself. Over time, this self-trust becomes a powerful engine. You rely less on motivation, mood, or external validation because you know you can act even when you don't feel like it.
Many people wait for motivation first and then plan to take action. But motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with sleep, mood, weather, or comments from others. If you wait to feel ready, you will keep waiting. The truth is the opposite of what most people believe. Action creates motivation. When you start moving, your brain releases energy, clarity, and enthusiasm. You feel progress, and progress fuels emotion. That is why telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow, is dangerous. You're postponing the very action that would create the motivation you think you need. Small actions also keep you in the present moment. Overthinking usually happens in the future. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What will people say? But when you engage in doing something right now, your attention comes back to reality. You feel the keyboard, hear your breath, focus on the task. The mind has less space to spiral because it is busy participating in life instead of watching it from the outside. So, start small, start imperfect, but start now. Don't wait for the perfect time, plan, or feeling. Send the text, open the book, walk for 5 minutes. Write badly if you must. You can improve later. The smallest step taken today beats the perfect step planned forever. Every immediate action you take weakens fear, quiets overthinking, and strengthens your identity as someone who moves forward. Over time, these small actions compound into big change, and what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. The longer you wait, the louder fear becomes. The mind starts telling stories, building worst-case scenarios, exaggerating consequences that don't even exist yet. A simple task like making a call suddenly feels risky. Writing a single paragraph begins to feel like a test of your worth. Waiting feeds fear. Action starves it. That is why taking small actions immediately is so powerful. The moment you move, even in a tiny way, the spell of fear breaks. You stop imagining and start experiencing. The problem shifts from being an intimidating thought to a manageable activity your body is actually doing. Action shrinks fear because reality is almost always less frightening than the stories the mind creates. Big goals often paralyze people, not because they're impossible, because they're viewed as one giant leap instead of many small steps. When you tell yourself you need to change your whole life at once, your brain resists. It wants safety, familiarity, and comfort. But when you break your goal into something small and doable right now, the brain relaxes. One message, one page, one push-up, one honest conversation. These tiny moves matter more than grand plans because they start momentum. And momentum is everything. Once you begin, continuing becomes easier than starting again later. Action has another hidden benefit. It gives you evidence. When you do something, no matter how small, you prove to yourself that you are capable. Your self-talk changes from I should to I did. Confidence is not built from thinking positively. It is built by seeing yourself follow through. Every small action says to your mind, I can trust myself. Over time, this self-trust becomes a powerful engine. You rely less on motivation, mood, or external validation because you know you can act even when you don't feel like it. Many people wait for motivation first and then plan to take action. But motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with sleep, mood, weather, or comments from others. If you wait to feel ready, you will keep waiting. The truth is the opposite of what most people believe. Action creates motivation. When you start moving, your brain releases energy, clarity, and enthusiasm. You feel progress, and progress fuels emotion.
That is why telling yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," is dangerous. You're postponing the very action that would create the motivation you think you need. Small actions also keep you in the present moment. Overthinking usually happens in the future. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What will people say? But when you engage in doing something right now, your attention comes back to reality. You feel the keyboard, hear your breath, focus on the task. The mind has less space to spiral because it is busy participating in life instead of watching it from the outside. So, start small, start imperfect, but start now. Don't wait for the perfect time, plan, or feeling. Send the text, open the book, walk for 5 minutes. Write badly if you must. You can improve later. The smallest step taken today beats the perfect step planned forever. Every immediate action you take weakens fear, quiets overthinking, and strengthens your identity as someone who moves forward. Over time, these small actions compound into big change, and what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. The longer you wait, the louder fear becomes. The mind starts telling stories, building worst-case scenarios, exaggerating consequences that don't even exist yet. A simple task like making a call suddenly feels risky. Writing a single paragraph begins to feel like a test of your worth. Waiting feeds fear. Action starves it. That is why taking small actions immediately is so powerful. You don't need to overhaul your life in one massive leap. You only need to move an inch forward right now. Every big achievement you admire started with one small step that didn't look impressive at all. A book began with one imperfect sentence. A strong body began with one short workout. A business began with one message or one decision. When you break goals into tiny steps, you make them possible. Your brain stops resisting because the step is no longer threatening. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are simply being asked to do something small that you can do today. Send the email, watch the lesson, walk for 10 minutes, clean one corner of the room. These steps look small on the surface, but they are powerful below it because they build movement. Momentum is your greatest ally. When you take one step, it becomes easier to take the next one. You move from thinking to doing, and your mind shifts from fear to focus. Overthinking cannot survive in action. You can't be stuck in your head while you're busy taking steps forward. That's why small actions matter so much. They pull you out of mental noise and into real life. You stop asking what if and start discovering what actually happens when I try.
Small actions also change how you see yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, even in a tiny way, you strengthen your identity as someone who takes action. Confidence doesn't come from hyping yourself up, it comes from proof. When you act, you collect proof. You show yourself that you are capable, that you can handle discomfort, that you don't need to feel 100% ready to begin. This quiet self-respect becomes powerful. You stop waiting for motivation because you know you can move without it. Most people think action comes after motivation, but the truth is the reverse. Action creates motivation. Once you begin, energy appears, ideas appear, courage appears. You start feeling like doing more simply because you already started. This is why "I'll start tomorrow" is dangerous. It keeps you trapped in the waiting cycle where motivation never comes. Start first, let motivation catch up later. So take one small action today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when everything is perfect, right now. Do it badly if you must. Do it clumsily. Do it while still feeling afraid. Because once you move, fear loses its power, overthinking grows quiet, and momentum begins working for you instead of against you. Those tiny steps, repeated daily, become massive change. One day you'll look back and realize your entire life shifted, not from one huge moment, but from small actions you chose to take immediately. Overthinking is often fear wearing a clever disguise. It whispers, "What if you choose wrong? What if you embarrass yourself? What if you fail?" So you stay still, not because you are lazy, but because you are afraid of being wrong. But here's the truth. Being wrong is not the problem. Refusing to move is. Mistakes are not roadblocks, they are guideposts.
Every strong person you admire carries a history of errors, missteps, awkward attempts, and imperfect beginnings. They didn't avoid mistakes, they learned how to handle them. You have already proven that you can survive failure. Think about your past. You've gone through disappointments, rejection, wrong decisions, and painful outcomes. At the time, they felt heavy, maybe unbearable. Yet here you are, wiser, stronger, more aware. Those experiences didn't destroy you, they shaped you. They developed your resilience, sharpened your judgment, and deepened your understanding of life and yourself. You didn't grow despite mistakes, you grew through them. Overthinking tries to protect you by keeping you from failing, but protection becomes a prison when it stops you from living. Life doesn't require perfection, it requires participation. You don't need a guarantee, you need trust. Trust in your ability to adapt when things don't go as planned. Real confidence is not saying, I will make the perfect decision. Real confidence is saying, whatever happens, I will figure it out. I will learn, I will adjust, I will keep going. Mistakes are powerful teachers because they give feedback reality cannot fake. A wrong turn shows you where not to go. A failed attempt shows you what to improve. A rejection shows you what needs strengthening. If you never risk being wrong, you also never gain these lessons. You stay safe, but you stay small. Progress requires movement, and movement includes some stumbling. Babies don't learn to walk by studying theory. They fall, stand up, and try again. Adults forget this and expect perfection on the first try. Trusting yourself means believing in your strength more than your fear. It means saying, even if I fail, I will not fall apart. I will rebuild. You already have inner resources, courage, creativity, intelligence, perseverance. You don't need certainty about the outcome when you have certainty about yourself. That inner certainty is what quiets overthinking. When you know you can handle mistakes, there is nothing left to fear. Let yourself act, experiment, adjust, and grow. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. Treat mistakes not as proof that you are incapable, but as evidence that you are in motion, that you are learning, that you are alive and engaged with your dreams. The people who change their lives are not the ones who never fail, they are the ones who refuse to stop because of failure. So move forward with courage. Make the call, start the project, take the chance. If you stumble, you will stand again. If you fall, you will rise wiser. Tell yourself with calm conviction, I may fail, but I will not quit. I can handle whatever comes.